I just wanted to buy my Harley. The salesman laughed until he saw the Hells Angels patch. The showroom smelled like wax and broken promises. Reed Bishop stood in the corner near the chrome fat boy, hands in his leather jacket, watching the salesman's smile crack like old paint. The laugh had died 3 seconds ago, right when Reed's jacket shifted and the red and white winged skull caught the fluorescent light. Now there was just silence, the kind that fills a room when a man realizes he's been talking to the wrong ghost. Reed hadn't said a word, didn't need to. The patch said everything his mouth wouldn't. Respect earned in blood, loyalty worn like armor, and a code older than any contract this kid would ever sign. Wait, before the next ride begins. If this story already hit you right in the chest, tell us where you're watching from. To ride with the Brotherhood through the next promise, loss, or redemption, subscribe and join the club. Engines up, back to the road. The salesman's name tag said Trevor, and Trevor had been riding high for the last 20 minutes. 28 years old, 3-piece suit that cost more than most bikes on the floor, hair gelled back like he was selling penthouses instead of motorcycles. He'd been talking non-stop since Reed walked in, talking about financing options, extended warranties, the premium experience of buying from Rolling Thunder Harley-Davidson, the largest dealership in 3 counties. "Now, I can see you're a man of taste," Trevor had said, gesturing toward the midnight blue street glide like it was a Picasso. "This baby right here, 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. Milwaukee 814 engine. You're looking at 53 grand out the door, but between you and me," he'd leaned in, conspiratorial, like they were old friends. "I can get you into it for 48 if you sign today." Reed had just stood there, stone-faced, letting the kid talk himself into a hole. "Course, we got financing through 3 different banks."
Interest rates are brutal right now, but hey, that's the market, right? You military? We got a veterans discount, knocks off maybe another grand. You work construction? Union guy? We got programs for that too. Trevor had circled the bike like a shark, one hand on the leather seat, the other gesturing wildly. "What do you do for work, if you don't mind me asking?" That's when Reed had shifted his weight. That's when the jacket opened. That's when Trevor's world got very, very small. The kid was pale now, Adam's apple bobbing, eyes locked on the patch like it might reach out and grab him. I didn't mean." "You got a manager here?" Reed's voice was gravel on asphalt, quiet, controlled. "Sir, Simple question, Trevor. Yeah, Mr. Carver. He's in the back office." Trevor's hand was shaking when he pointed toward the hallway past the parts counter. "Do you want me to—" "Stay here." Reed walked past him, boots heavy on the polished concrete floor. The showroom stretched out like a cathedral of steel and chrome, rows of Softails and Road Kings, Street Bobs and Fat Boys, all gleaming under lights that made them look like they were already moving. 40 bikes, easy, maybe more. Every one of them a dream some man somewhere was working double shifts to afford. Reed had been that man once, 23 years ago, before the patch, before the Brotherhood, before he understood what it meant to earn something instead of just buying it. He'd walked into a dealership in Phoenix with 12 grand cash in a duffel bag, money from 3 months working oil rigs in Texas, sleeping 4 hours a night, eating beans from a can. He'd pointed at a used Dyna and said, "That one." The salesman had looked at him like he was dirt. "You sure you can afford it, son?" Reed had dumped the cash on the desk, every greasy bill, and ridden out an hour later with the title in his jacket and the wind in his face. That bike had carried him 60,000 miles before he sold it to a prospect in Tucson. By then, he'd earned the patch. By then, the bike didn't matter as much as what it represented. Freedom, yes, but also accountability, brotherhood, code. The back hallway smelled like coffee and desperation. Reed passed a break room where two mechanics sat scrolling their phones, barely glancing up. The office at the end had a frosted glass door with James Carver, general manager, stenciled in black letters. Reed knocked once, didn't wait for an answer, pushed the door open. James Carver was 55, maybe 60, with silver hair buzzed military short and a gut that said he'd stopped writing and started managing 10 years ago. He looked up from his computer, irritation flashing across his face until he saw Reed's cut. Then his expression changed. Not fear exactly, but caution. Respect, maybe, or at least recognition. "Help you?" Carver's voice was neutral, professional, the voice of a man who dealt with enough walks of life to know when to shut up and listen. Reed closed the door behind him. "Your boy out there, Trevor." Carver sighed, leaned back in his chair. What did he do? Talked too much, laughed too loud, made assumptions. About. Reed didn't answer, just stood there, jacket open, patch visible. The skull seemed to glow in the overhead light. Red wings spread wide, Hell's Angels arched above, California rockers below. Carver's eyes flicked to it, then back to Reed's face. "I see. Do you?" Carver stood slowly, hands open, placating. "Look, Trevor's new. 6 months on the floor. Kid's got a gift for numbers, but he's still learning the nuances of customer service. If he disrespected you, I apologize. That's not how we do business here." "I didn't come here for an apology." "Then what do you want?" Reed walked to the window overlooking the showroom floor. From here he could see everything. The rows of bikes, the parts counter, the service bays in the back where 3 Harleys sat in various states of disassembly. Trevor was still standing by the street glide, looking like he might throw up. 2 other salesmen had materialized, whispering to each other near the entrance, casting glances toward the back office. "I came here to buy a motorcycle," Reed said quietly. "Cash. No financing, no games, no disrespect. I came here because this is where my brother bought his Road King 3 years ago, and he said you treated him fair. Said you looked him in the eye and shook his hand like a man. That true?" Carver's jaw tightened. "Who's your brother?" "Was. Tommy Bishop. Died last March. Heart attack. 49 years old, went in his sleep." Something shifted in Carver's face, softened. "I remember Tommy. Big guy, right? Laughed like thunder. Bought the black Road King with the custom pipes." "That's him. Hell of a rider. I'm sorry for your loss." Reed nodded once. "He left me some money. Not much. Enough for a bike. Told me in his will to spend it on something that moves, not something that sits. So here I am." He turned back to Carver. "But I walk into your showroom and I get treated like a mark. Like I'm stupid, like I don't know what I'm looking at. Your boy out there, he saw the patch and his whole world changed. Now I'm wondering if Tommy was wrong about this place." Carver was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to the door, opened it, called out, "Trevor, my office, now." The kid appeared 30 seconds later, pale and sweating, eyes darting between Reed and Carver like he was looking for an exit that didn't exist. Carver gestured to a chair. "Sit." Trevor sat. Carver leaned against his desk, arms crossed, and looked at the kid like a disappointed father. "You know who this man is?" "No, sir." "His name's Reed Bishop. His brother Tommy bought a bike from us 3 years ago." "Tommy Bishop. You remember that sale?" "No, sir. I wasn't here yet." "Right, you weren't. But you know what? Tommy Bishop was one of the best customers we ever had. Paid cash, maintained his bike here, sent 3 of his friends to us. Good man, respectful, loyal. And this man, his brother, just told me he walked in here today with cash in his pocket, ready to buy, and you treated him like a joke." Trevor's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't. I mean, I was just trying to." "You were trying to close. I get it. But you forgot rule number 1.
Respect the customer. Every customer. Doesn't matter if they walk in wearing a three-piece suit or a leather cut. Doesn't matter if they're buying a Street 500 or a CVO. You treat them like a human being. You listen. You learn what they need, not what you want to sell them. And you damn sure don't laugh when they tell you what they came for. I wasn't laughing at him. Trevor. Reed's voice cut through the room like a blade. I've been riding for 26 years. I've buried 11 brothers. I've seen men die on the highway, and I've sat with their widows at funerals where the only sound was engines idling in tribute. I've earned every thread on this patch. I've bled for it, lost friends for it. So when you stand there in your shiny suit talking about financing and interest rates and premium experiences, and then you see what I wear and your face changes, yeah, that's disrespect. And disrespect is something I don't forget. The room was silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. Trevor looked like he might cry. Carver looked resigned, like this was a conversation he'd had before with different players. "Mr. Bishop," Carver said carefully, "I think Trevor understands now. If you'll give us another chance, I'd like to personally help you find the right bike. No pressure, no games. Just two riders talking about what you need and what we've got. Fair?" Reed studied him. Carver's eyes were steady, honest, the kind of eyes that had seen some road, made some mistakes, learned some lessons. "You ride?" "Used to. Got into a wreck in '09, broke my back. Doc said no more bikes. But I still love them. That's why I'm here." Carver gestured to the showroom beyond the glass. "This place, it's not just about moving units. It's about connecting people with their freedom, their dream. I know that sounds like corporate bullshit, but it's true. Or it's supposed to be." Reed nodded slowly. "Tommy said you shook his hand." "I did." "Said you looked him in the eye." "I did that too." "Then let's go look at bikes." They walked back onto the showroom floor together, Carver leading, Reed following. Trevor stayed in the office, probably wondering if he still had a job. The other salesmen scattered like birds when they saw Carver coming. Reed noticed a couple of customers near the apparel section, eyeing him warily. He ignored them. Let them look. The patch was a filter. It separated the men from the boys, the respectful from the fearful, the righteous from the ignorant. "What are you looking for?" Carver asked as they moved through the rows of bikes. "Cruiser? Tourer? Something fast? Something comfortable? Something honest." Carver laughed, a real laugh, not the salesman kind. "Honest? All right, I can work with that." He stopped in front of a matte gray Road King. "This one's been sitting for 3 months. Nobody wants it because it's not flashy. No chrome package, no paint job. Just steel and rubber and engine. But it's solid. Milwaukee 8107, 6-speed, comfortable for long rides. 28,000 miles, one owner, older guy who kept it in his garage and rode it on Sundays. He traded it in when his wife got sick and he needed cash for medical bills." Reed walked around the bike slowly, taking it in. The previous owner had treated it right. No scratches, no dings. Tires still good. The seat was worn in just enough to show it had been ridden but not abused. He ran his hand along the tank. "How much?" "Sticker says 22. I'll do 18. 15. Carver smiled. 16.5. 15.5. 16. "Cash?" "Cash." They shook hands. Carver's grip was firm, calloused. The grip of a man who'd worked with his hands before he worked with paperwork. "I'll have the title ready in an hour. You want to take it for a spin first?" "No need. I trust it." "You sure?" Reed nodded. "Tommy trusted you. That's enough." They walked back to the office to handle the paperwork. Trevor was gone. Carver said he'd sent him home for the day, told him to think about whether this was really the job for him. Reed didn't care either way. Some men learned, some didn't. That was their choice. While Carver printed the title and bill of sale, Reed sat in a chair across from him and watched the showroom through the glass. A young couple was looking at a Street 500, the woman sitting on it, laughing, while her boyfriend took pictures. An older man in a Vietnam vet cap was talking to one of the salesmen near the Ultras. A kid, maybe 19, was standing alone by the Sportsters, hands in his pockets, dreaming. "You got kids?" Reed asked. Carver looked up from the printer. "Two. Boy and a girl, both grown now. Son's a teacher in Portland, daughter's a nurse in Denver. They ride? My son did, for a while. Sold his bike when his first kid was born. Said his wife made him choose." Carver smiled sadly. "I get it, but I miss riding with him." Reed nodded. "Tommy's boy is 16 now, lives with his mom in Sacramento. Good kid, stays out of trouble, but he's got that look, you know? Like he's waiting for something. Like he knows there's a world out there he hasn't seen yet. You gonna teach him to ride?" "If his mama lets me. She's not a fan of the club." Reed paused. "Can't blame her. She saw what it cost Tommy. The time away, the danger, the weight of carrying the patch. But she also saw what it gave him. Purpose, brotherhood, something bigger than himself." "That's the thing people don't understand," Carver said, signing the title. "They see the leather and the patches, and they think it's about rebellion or danger, but it's not.
It's about belonging. It's about finding your place in a world that tells you you don't matter unless you're chasing some corporate dream or living for a paycheck. It's about saying, no, I'm gonna live on my terms, with my brothers, by my code. That's what Tommy had. That's what you've got." Reed took the title when Carver slid it across the desk. "You ever think about riding again?" "Every damn day." But the docs were clear. One more wreck and I'm in a wheelchair for life. So I live through guys like you. I sell the bikes, I hear the stories, I see the freedom in your eyes when you ride out of here. It's not the same, but it's something. You could prospect." Carver laughed. "I'm too old for that shit, but I appreciate the thought." They finished the paperwork in silence, both men comfortable with the quiet. Reed counted out $16,000 in hundreds, stacking them neatly on the desk. Carver counted them back, wrote up the receipt, stapled everything together in a manila envelope. "You need help getting it started?" "I got it." They walked out to the showroom floor together one last time. The young couple was gone. The Vietnam vet was signing papers with the salesman. The kid by the Sportsters was still standing there, dreaming. Reed stopped beside him on the way to his new Road King. "First bike?" Reed asked. The kid jumped, startled. Yeah, hoping to buy one. Saving up." "What do you do?" "Work at a warehouse, nights. Trying to finish my GED during the day." Reed nodded. "Keep saving, keep working. And when you finally get on that bike, ride it like you earned it, because you did." The kid's eyes went wide when he saw the patch, but he didn't look away, just nodded, serious. "Yes, sir." Reed walked to the Road King, threw his leg over, settled into the seat. Carver handed him the keys. "She's all yours. Ride safe, brother. Always do." The engine turned over on the first try, a deep, throaty growl that echoed through the showroom like a prayer. Reed let it idle for a moment, feeling the vibration through the frame, the weight of the machine beneath him. Then he twisted the throttle, eased out the clutch, and rode toward the exit. The sunlight hit him as he cleared the doors, bright and warm. And for a moment, he could swear he felt Tommy beside him, laughing, free, alive, in the way only riders understood. The highway stretched out ahead like a promise. Reed pointed the bike north and let it run. He rode for 3 hours without stopping, letting the miles blur together, letting the wind strip away the tension from the dealership, the memory of Trevor's nervous laugh, the weight of the patch on his back. The Road King handled like a dream, smooth, powerful, responsive. Whoever the previous owner had been had taken care of it. Reed made a mental note to thank the guy if their paths ever crossed. Probably wouldn't. That was the way of the road. You touched lives briefly, deeply, and then you moved on. He stopped for gas in a town called Millerton, population 1,200, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers were either welcomed or watched. Reed chose a station on the edge of town, away from the main brag, and pulled up to the pump beside a rusted Ford pickup that looked like it had seen better decades.
An old man was leaning against the truck bed, smoking a cigarette, eyes hidden behind aviator sunglasses. "Nice ride," the old man said as Reed killed the engine. "Thanks." "New?" "To me, yeah." "Where you headed?" Reed pulled off his helmet, ran a hand through his hair. "North, maybe. Haven't decided yet." The old man nodded like that made perfect sense. Best way to ride. No plans, no schedules, just you and the road. He took a drag, exhaled smoke that curled into the afternoon air. "I used to ride, long time ago. Had a '71 Shovelhead, ugliest damn bike you ever saw, but she ran like a dream. Rode her from here to Alaska and back in '85. Took me 3 months.
Best summer of my life. What happened to her? Sold her when my wife got pregnant. Needed the money for baby stuff. Cribs and diapers and all that shit. The old man smiled sadly. Don't regret it. My daughter turned out great. But I think about that bike sometimes. Wonder where she ended up, if whoever bought her took care of her. Reed swiped his card, started pumping gas. You could buy another one. Yeah, I could. But it wouldn't be the same. That bike, she was part of me. Part of that time in my life when I thought I was invincible. When the world was big and I was bigger. You can't get that back, no matter how much money you spend. No, Reed agreed quietly. You can't. The old man flicked his cigarette into the dirt, ground it out with his boot heel. You got someone waiting for you? Wife? Kids? Had a wife, long time ago. Didn't work out. No kids. Just you and the club, huh? Reed glanced at him. The old man was smiling, friendly, no judgment in his voice. Just me and the club. That's all right. Brotherhood's as good as family, sometimes better. The old man pushed off the truck, opened the driver's door. Safe travels, brother. Keep the shiny side up. You too. Reed watched him drive away, the Ford rattling down the road like it might fall apart at any moment, but somehow holding together through sheer stubbornness. Then he capped the tank, swung back onto the bike, and rode out. The sun was setting when he reached the turnoff for Cooper's Ridge, a stretch of mountain highway that wound through pines and granite cliffs, narrow and dangerous and beautiful. Tommy had loved this road. They'd ridden it together a dozen times over the years, racing each other through the curves, stopping at the overlook to watch the valley below turn gold in the dying light. Tommy always won. Always. He knew the road like he knew his own heartbeat. Every turn, every dip, every place where the gravel got loose and you had to trust your instincts over your eyes. Reed took it slow, deliberate, letting the bike find its rhythm. The engine purred through the curves, the tires gripping asphalt worn smooth by 1,000 other riders. The air smelled like pine and rain, cool and clean, and above him the first stars were winking into existence. He reached the overlook just as the last light bled from the sky, pulling off onto the gravel shoulder and killing the engine. Silence rushed in like a tide. No traffic, no voices, no wind. Just the ticking of the cooling engine and the distant hoot of an owl somewhere in the trees. Reed dismounted, walked to the edge of the overlook, and looked down at the valley spread out below like a quilt of lights. Houses, roads, a river snaking silver through the darkness. "Miss you, brother," he said to the night. The words hung in the air, unanswered, and then dissolved into the silence. Reed stood there for a long time, hands in his pockets, feeling the weight of everything Tommy had left behind. The memories, the lessons, the unfinished conversations, the love. People talked about death like it was an ending, but Reed knew better. Death was just a door. Tommy had walked through it, but he was still here, in the road, in the bike, in the wind that carried Reed forward. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. Hit dial. It rang 4 times before a woman's voice answered, cautious and tired. "Hello?" "Karen,
It's Reed. A pause. Reed, hi. I didn't expect to hear from you. I know. I'm sorry. I should have called sooner. It's okay. How are you? I'm good. I just bought a bike. Tommy's money. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, he would have liked that. Yeah, I think so too. Reed watched the lights below, tiny and distant. How's Marcus? He's good. Growing. You should see him, Reed. He's almost as tall as Tommy was. I'd like to see him. If that's okay with you. Karen's voice softened. Of course it's okay. He asks about you sometimes. Wants to know stories about his dad. About the rides, the club, all of it. I tell him what I can, but you weren't there. No, I wasn't. Reed closed his eyes. I could come by. This weekend, maybe. Take Marcus out for breakfast. Tell him some stories. Nothing crazy. Just the good stuff. The stuff Tommy would want him to know. I'd like that, Karen said quietly. He'd like that too. They talked for a few more minutes, trading small updates, dancing around the grief that still sat between them like a third presence. Then they said goodbye, and Reed pocketed his phone, feeling lighter somehow, like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying without realizing it. He rode back down the mountain in full darkness, headlight cutting a tunnel through the night, and didn't stop until he reached the clubhouse 2 hours later. The Hells Angels clubhouse in Reading wasn't much to look at from the outside. A squat, cinder-block building with barred windows and a gravel parking lot ringed by chain-link fence. But inside, it was home. The walls were covered with photos, patches, and memorabilia from decades of rides. Framed pictures of brothers long gone, signed posters from rallies and runs, a battered pool table that had seen 1,000 games and probably twice as many beers. The bar in the corner was always stocked, the jukebox always loaded with Skinnerd and Sabbath and Stones, and the leather couch against the back wall had molded itself to the shape of tired riders over the years. Reed parked the Road King beside a row of other bikes, Dynas, Softails, a couple of choppers that looked like they'd been built in someone's garage with more heart than money. The clubhouse door was propped open, light spilling out into the night, and he could hear voices inside, laughter, the crack of pool balls. He walked in and was immediately greeted by Bear, the club's sergeant-at-arms, a man who looked exactly like his name suggested, 6'5", 280, beard down to his chest, arms like tree trunks. Bear grinned when he saw Reed, came over and pulled him into a hug that would have cracked ribs on a smaller man. "There he is! Where the hell you been, brother?" "Buying a bike." "Yeah? Let's see it." They walked back outside, and Bear circled the Road King, nodding appreciatively. "Clean. Real clean. Tommy's money?" "Yeah. He'd be proud." Bear clapped Reed on the shoulder hard enough to leave a bruise. "Come on, everybody's here. Church starts in 20. Inside, the clubhouse was packed. Maybe 30 brothers, all told. Some sitting at the bar, others playing pool, a few clustered around the TV watching a baseball game. Reed recognized most of them. Diesel, the club's road captain, a wiry man in his 50s with tattoos covering every inch of visible skin. Knox, the treasurer, who looked more like an accountant than a biker, but could fight like a demon when pushed. Trace, the youngest member, barely 25, still learning the ropes, but loyal as hell. And Bishop, no relation, the club's vice president, a gray-haired man with eyes like flint and a voice like gravel. Bishop saw Reed and raised his beer in salute. Reed returned it, grabbed a beer from the cooler, and settled onto the couch beside Hawk, an older brother who'd been riding since the 70s and had more scars than stories. "Heard you got a new ride," Hawk said, without looking away from the TV. "Word travels fast." "Always does. You happy with it?" "Yeah, it's solid." "Good. Tommy would have wanted you to have something reliable, something that won't leave you stranded on the side of the road at 2 in the morning with nothing but coyotes for company." Reed smiled. "That happened to you?" "Twice. Once in Arizona, once in Nevada. Both times I thought I was gonna die. Both times I didn't." That's the road for you. She'll test you, but she won't kill you unless you deserve it. At 9 o'clock sharp, Bishop stood up and called for church. The brothers filed into the back room, a windowless space with a long table surrounded by mismatched chairs. This was where the club conducted its official business: votes on new prospects, discussions about upcoming runs, resolutions to disputes, plans for charity events and fundraisers. The door closed and locked behind them, sealing the room off from the outside world. Bishop took his seat at the head of the table, flanked by Diesel and Bear. Reed sat near the middle, between Hawk and Knox. The room settled into silence, the kind of respectful quiet that came when men understood the weight of what they were building together. "All right," Bishop began, his voice carrying authority without being loud. "First order of business. The memorial run for Tommy is 3 weeks out. Diesel, you got the route finalized?" Diesel nodded, pulling out a folded map and spreading it on the table. "Yeah, we start here, head north through Cooper's Ridge, stop at the overlook where he loved to watch the sunset, then continue up to Lake Shasta. We'll do a moment of silence there, pour one out, then ride back. Should take about 6 hours total, including stops." "Who's riding?" "So far, 23 confirmed. Could be more by the time we roll out." Bishop looked at Reed. "You good with this?" Reed nodded. "Yeah, Tommy would have liked it. Whole club together, riding the roads he loved. That's how he would have wanted to be remembered." "All right. Diesel, keep coordinating. Make sure everyone's got the route, knows the stops. I don't want anyone getting lost or left behind." They moved through the rest of the agenda. A charity poker run scheduled for next month, a dispute with a rival club over territory that needed to be resolved diplomatically, a prospect who'd been hanging around for 6 months and was ready to be voted in. The discussions were frank, sometimes heated, but always respectful. Every man had a voice. Every opinion mattered. That was the code. When church ended, the brothers filtered back out into the main room, the tension of formal business giving way to the easy camaraderie of shared beer and stories. Reed stayed at the bar, nursing his second drink, watching the room. These men were his family. They'd stood beside him at weddings and funerals, celebrated victories and mourned losses, ridden through storms and sunshine and everything in between. They'd earned his loyalty the same way he'd earned theirs, through action, through sacrifice, through showing up when it mattered. Trace sidled up beside him, young and eager, eyes bright. "Hey, Reed, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "How long did it take you? I mean, how long before you knew this was where you belonged?" Reed thought about it. "About 5 minutes." Trace laughed. "Seriously?" "Seriously. I walked into a clubhouse in Phoenix, didn't know anybody, didn't know the rules, didn't know what I was getting into. But I saw the brothers together, saw how they treated each other, saw the respect and the loyalty, and I thought, yeah, this is it. This is what I've been looking for." Reed took a sip of beer. "But knowing is one thing, earning it is another. That took years." "How many?" "Doesn't matter. It's different for everyone. Some guys prospect for 6 months, some take 2 years. It's not about the time. It's about proving you're willing to put the club before yourself, that you're willing to ride when it's cold, show up when it's inconvenient, fight when it's necessary, and stand silent when the law comes asking questions. It's about being someone your brothers can trust with their lives." Trace nodded slowly, absorbing this. "I want that. I want to earn it." "Then you will. Just keep showing up, keep listening, keep learning, and when the time comes, you'll know." They drank in companionable silence for a while, watching the room, until Hawk called out from the pool table, challenging Reed to a game. Reed obliged, racking the balls, while Hawk selected a cue and chalked it with the precision of a man who'd played 10,000 games and won most of them. "You break," Hawk said. Reed broke clean, sinking 2 stripes off the scatter. They played slowly, methodically, each shot calculated, each miss acknowledged with a nod. The jukebox played Allman Brothers, the air smelled like cigarettes and leather, and for a while the world outside ceased to exist. There was only this moment, this room, these men. He sank the 8-ball with 5 minutes to midnight, and Hawk bought him another beer in grudging respect. They sat back down on the couch, boots propped on the coffee table, and watched the others play until one by one they started peeling off. Some to crash in the back rooms, some to ride home, some to stay up drinking until dawn turned the sky pink. Reed stayed until 2, talking with Bishop about the memorial run, about Tommy, about the state of the club and where they were headed. Bishop was a good leader, the kind of man who listened more than he talked, who made decisions based on consensus rather than ego, who understood that the patch on his back was a responsibility, not a badge of power. "You ever think about stepping up?" Bishop asked eventually. "Maybe taking Diesel's spot when he retires?" Reed shook his head. "I'm good where I am. Road captain's too much politics, too much coordination. I just want to ride." Bishop smiled. "Fair enough, but if you change your mind, the door's open." "I won't, but thanks." Reed rode home an hour before sunrise, the sky just starting to lighten on the eastern horizon, the air cool and still. His apartment was small and spare, 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, a couch that had seen better days. He'd lived there for 8 years, and it still felt temporary, like he was just passing through on his way to somewhere else. Maybe that was the point. Maybe home wasn't a place. Maybe it was the road, the ride, the brotherhood. He fell asleep in his clothes, boots still on, and dreamed of highways stretching into infinity. The weekend arrived cold and gray, the kind of weather that made people want to stay inside with coffee and blankets. Reed woke early, showered, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt with his cut over it, and rode south towards Sacramento. The traffic was light, the road wet from overnight rain, and he made good time, arriving at Karen's house just before 9. She lived in a modest 2-story, in a neighborhood full of young families and retirees, the kind of place where people mowed their lawns on Saturday and waved to their neighbors. Tommy had bought the house 6 years ago, back when he was still trying to balance club life with family life, when he thought maybe he could have both. It hadn't worked. Karen had given him an ultimatum, her or the club, and Tommy had chosen the club. Reed had been there the night Tommy packed his bags, watched his brother's face as he kissed Marcus goodbye, promised to visit every weekend. Tommy had kept that promise for a while. Then the visits got less frequent. Then they stopped altogether. Not because Tommy didn't love his son, because love and presence weren't always the same thing. Reed parked in the driveway, killed the engine, and walked to the front door. Karen answered on the second knock, looking older than he remembered, but still beautiful in the way women become when they've survived something hard and come out stronger. She smiled, genuine, and stepped aside to let him in. "Marcus, Uncle Reed's here." Footsteps thundered down the stairs, and then Marcus appeared, all limbs and energy, 16 years old and already taller than his mother. He had Tommy's eyes, Tommy's smile, Tommy's way of moving like he owned the world. Reed's chest tightened. "Hey, Uncle Reed." "Hey, kid, you ready?" "Yeah, where are we going?" "You'll see." They said goodbye to Karen and climbed onto the bike, Marcus behind Reed, arms wrapped tight, helmet secure. Reed felt the kid's nervous excitement through the vibration of the frame, the way he tensed in the curves, the way he laughed when they hit the straightaway and opened up the throttle. This was what Tommy had wanted to give his son, this freedom, this joy, this sense of flying while staying grounded. Reed was determined to deliver it. They rode to a diner on the outskirts of town, a greasy spoon joint that served breakfast all day and didn't care if you wore leather or looked dangerous. They ordered eggs and bacon and pancakes and coffee. Marcus drank his black, trying to be tough, and Reed watched the kid eat like he was starving. "Mom said you wanted to tell me stories," Marcus said between bites. "About Dad." "Yeah, if you want to hear them." "I do. She tells me stuff, but it's not the same. She didn't know him the way you did." Reed nodded. "Your dad was one of the best men I ever knew. He wasn't perfect, none of us are, But he was loyal, brave, and honest. He rode harder than anyone, laughed louder, fought fiercer, and he loved you more than anything in this world. Then why'd he leave? The question hung between them like smoke. Reed took a sip of coffee, choosing his words carefully. Your dad didn't leave because he didn't love you. He left because he couldn't figure out how to be two people at once. He wanted to be a good father and a good brother to the club, and he thought he had to choose. So he chose what he knew best. But he regretted it, Marcus, every day. He told me once, near the end, that his biggest mistake was walking away from you. That if he could do it over, he'd find a way to make it work. Marcus stared at his plate, jaw tight.
I wanted to hate him for it, for leaving, but I can't. I don't even remember him that well. Just pieces. The way he smelled like motor oil, the way he'd pick me up and spin me around until I got dizzy, the way he'd sing in the car, really bad, and Mom would yell at him to stop. Reed smiled. He was a terrible singer. Sounded like a wounded animal. Marcus laughed, the tension breaking. Yeah? Yeah. But he didn't care. He'd sing anyway, loud as hell, just to make people laugh. They spent the next hour trading stories. Reed talking about rides through the desert, bar fights that turned into friendships, charity runs where the club raised thousands for kids' hospitals, and the time Tommy talked a suicidal veteran off a bridge by sitting with him for 6 hours and sharing a bottle of whiskey. Marcus listened, absorbed it all, asked questions, filled in the gaps of a father he'd barely known. When breakfast was over, they rode north to Cooper's Ridge, the same stretch of highway Reed had ridden earlier in the week. He stopped at the overlook, and they stood together at the edge, looking down at the valley below. This was his favorite place, Reed said. He used to come here when he needed to think. Said it reminded him that no matter how small he felt, the world was big enough for all of it. The pain, the joy, the mistakes, the second chances. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then, "Do you think he's out there? Somewhere?" Reed looked at the kid. "I think he's everywhere you let him be. In the road, in the wind, in the stories we tell. In you." Marcus nodded, wiping at his eyes. "I wish I'd known him better. You can still know him. Through the life you live, through the choices you make, through the man you become." Reed put a hand on the kid's shoulder. "Your dad wasn't perfect, but he taught me that it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up, about trying, about loving people even when it's hard. And that's something you can carry, Marcus."
That's something you can pass on. They stayed at the overlook until the sun broke through the clouds, painting the valley gold. Then they rode back to Sacramento, slower this time, Reed letting the kid feel the road, the rhythm, the peace that came from movement. When they pulled into the driveway, Karen was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, smiling. "You have fun?" she called. "Yeah," Marcus said, dismounting. "Uncle Reed told me about Dad, the good stuff." Karen looked at Reed, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you. Anytime." Reed said his goodbyes, hugged Marcus, told him to call if he ever needed anything. Then he rode away, back toward Redding, feeling lighter than he had in months. Tommy was gone, but his legacy wasn't. It lived in Marcus, in the stories, in the road that stretched out ahead. The memorial run happened on a Sunday morning, bright and clear, the kind of weather that made you believe in second chances. 28 brothers showed up, their bikes lined up in the clubhouse parking lot like a steel chorus, engines idling, exhaust curling into the air. Reed stood beside his road king, watching the others arrive, feeling the weight of what they were about to do. Bishop called everyone together, standing on the clubhouse steps, voice carrying over the rumble of engines. "Brothers, today we ride for Tommy. We ride to remember him, honor him, and carry his spirit with us on the road he loved. This isn't about mourning, it's about celebrating a life lived full throttle, a man who gave everything to this club, to his brothers, to the code. So we ride hard, we ride together, and we make damn sure Tommy knows we haven't forgotten him." A chorus of "I" echoed through the lot. Then, one by one, the brothers mounted their bikes, kick-started engines, pulled on helmets.
Reed was near the front, beside Bishop and Diesel, and when Bishop gave the signal, they rolled out in formation. 2 columns, perfectly spaced, moving like a single organism through the streets of Reading. People stopped to watch as they passed, some waving, some staring, some snapping photos with their phones. Reed didn't care. Let them look. Let them wonder. This was about more than spectacle. This was about brotherhood. This was about honoring a man who'd lived by a code most people would never understand. They hit the highway and opened up the throttles, the roar of 28 engines blending into a symphony of freedom. The wind tore at Reed's jacket, stung his eyes behind his sunglasses, filled his lungs with the smell of asphalt and exhaust and pine. He felt alive. He felt connected. He felt Tommy riding beside him, laughing, free, unburdened by the weight of mortal flesh. They reached Cooper's Ridge an hour later and pulled off at the overlook, dismounting in silence. Bishop opened a bottle of whiskey, took a sip, and passed it around. Each brother drank, then poured a little on the ground, an offering, a tribute. When the bottle reached Reed, he took a long pull, feeling the burn, then tipped it over and watched the amber liquid soak into the earth. "To Tommy," he said quietly. "To Tommy," the others echoed. They stood there for 10 minutes, maybe longer, saying nothing, just existing together in the space Tommy had loved. Then Bishop nodded, and they mounted up again, riding north toward Lake Shasta. The lake was glass smooth, reflecting the sky like a mirror, and they parked in a semicircle near the shore, engines off, silence settling over them like a blanket. Bishop stood at the water's edge, hands in his pockets, and spoke without turning around. "Tommy Bishop was my brother, not by blood, but by choice. He rode with us through good times and bad, never complained, never faltered, never broke the code. He made mistakes, sure, we all do. But he owned them. He learned from them, and he died knowing he was loved, knowing he belonged, knowing his life mattered." Bishop's voice cracked. "I miss him. We all miss him. But we honor him by living the way he lived, loyal, brave, honest, and free. So let's ride home, brothers. Let's carry him with us. Let's make damn sure his legacy lives on." One by one, the brothers started their engines, the sound rolling across the lake like thunder. Reed was the last to mount up, and before he did, he bent down and picked up a smooth stone from the shore. He turned it over in his palm, feeling its weight, then slipped it into his pocket. A reminder, a talisman, a piece of this place, this moment, this brotherhood. They rode back to Reading as the sun began its descent, the light turning the world golden. And when they pulled into the clubhouse parking lot, there was a sense of completion, of closure, of peace. The brothers dismounted, shook hands, clapped each other on the back. Some stayed for beers, some headed home. Some just stood beside their bikes, lost in thought, letting the day settle over them. Reed stayed until dark, talking with Bishop and Hawk and Diesel, sharing memories, laughter, silence. Then he mounted his Road King and rode home alone, the stone from the lake heavy in his pocket, Tommy's ghost riding beside him all the way. 6 months passed. Summer turned to fall, fall turned to winter, and the world kept spinning the way it always did, indifferent to the small griefs and joys of the people living in it. Reed rode every weekend, sometimes alone, sometimes with the club, logging thousands of miles on the Road King. The bike became an extension of him, reliable, steady, honest, just like Tommy said it would be. He visited Marcus twice more, each time taking the kid on longer rides, teaching him the basics of how to handle a bike, how to read the road, How to respect the machine.
Marcus was a natural, fearless but not reckless, confident but not cocky. By Christmas, Karen was talking about letting him get his license, maybe even his own bike. Reed promised to help him find one when the time came. The club thrived. They added 2 new members, hosted a successful charity run that raised 15 grand for a local children's hospital, and resolved the territory dispute with the rival club through negotiation rather than violence. Bishop stepped down as vice president, passing the title to Diesel, and the transition was smooth, respectful, earned. Reed was offered the position of road captain twice and declined both times. He was content where he was, riding, supporting, being present without leading. One Saturday in late January, Reed was in the clubhouse when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Is this Reed Bishop?" "Yeah, who's this?" "My name's James Carver. I don't know if you remember me. I'm the manager at Rolling Thunder Harley Davidson. You bought a Road King from me about 6 months ago." Reed frowned. "Yeah, I remember. Everything okay?" "Yeah, everything's fine. Actually, I'm calling because, well, something happened. Something you should know about." Reed's pulse quickened. "What?" "That kid, Trevor, the salesman who gave you a hard time. He quit about a week after you came in. Went to work at a tech startup or something. But he called me yesterday, out of the blue. Said he's been thinking about what happened, about how he treated you, and it's been eating at him. He wanted me to give you his number so he could apologize." Reed was silent for a long moment. "Why?" "Said he realized he'd been a dick. Said he'd been treating customers like numbers instead of people, and seeing your patch, seeing the way you carried yourself, it woke him up. Made him think about what kind of man he wanted to be."
He's working at a nonprofit now, helping veterans get access to mental health services. Says it's the first time in his life he's felt like he's doing something that matters. Reed leaned back against the bar, processing this. I'm not asking you to call him. That's your choice. But I figured you should know. Sometimes people change. Sometimes they learn. And sometimes, whether they deserve it or not, they get a second chance." "Yeah," Reed said quietly. He hung up and stared at his phone for a while, thinking. Then he opened his contacts, found Karen's number, and sent a text. "Tell Marcus I'll be there next weekend. Time to look at bikes." Her reply came almost immediately. "Hell be thrilled. Thank you, Reed." Reed smiled, pocketed his phone, and walked outside into the cold January air. The Road King was waiting where he'd left it, faithful and steady, gleaming under the clubhouse lights. He threw his leg over, fired up the engine, and let it idle for a moment, feeling the vibration through the frame. Tommy was gone, but his legacy lived on. In Marcus, in the club, in the road that stretched out ahead like a promise. Reed twisted the throttle and rode out into the night, the wind in his face, the stars overhead, the brotherhood at his back. Some men measured their lives in years or money or accomplishments. Reed measured his in miles, in brothers, in moments like this. Riding free, carrying the weight of the patch with pride, knowing he belonged to something bigger than himself. He rode until dawn, until the sky turned pink and gold, until the world woke up and started moving again. And when he finally pulled back into the clubhouse parking lot, exhausted and exhilarated, he knew one thing for certain. He was home.